It was mentioned tonight that he worked at the Hostess Cake Plant in Natick. He wasn't the director of the thrift store. He was the guy who made the Twinkies and filled them. And in occasional times, he sampled them. You probably didn't know that Michael was the president of Caira, a statewide Catholic young adult organization. This is where he met the love of his life, Jane. She was his secretary. This is also when he started spending less time with Kenny, Tiger, and me playing touch football and basketball and spending more time paying attention to the accuracy of the minutes. But the fact is, I was compensated. Michael would take me to the Boston College games, the basketball games. That was a lot of fun. But the best part of that was the ride home. We would whistle tunes all the way back. Actually, we've gotten so good at our whistling routine that after Michael retires, we're going to audition for America's Got Talent. It seems like to us that Michael has always served as town manager. But you've heard tonight that he also worked under the Governor Sargent's administration, but he also worked under Governor Dukakis as well. And he was an administrator at Metropolitan State Hospital. I'll bet you didn't know that Michael is a baseball umpire at both the high school and college levels. You do know that he's a member of the Knights of Columbus and the Sons of Italy, and you heard that he was the first national director of the Sons of Italy in America. He ran Joe Malone's campaign for the United States Senate, and along with Joe, he ran an organization that fought for term limits, known as 8 is Enough. 8 is enough. Term limits. What a novel idea. Senator Tarr, just kidding. Representative Maselli, not so much. What a great tribute to Michael tonight. Our dad would have been bursting with pride. Your attendance here this evening is an expression of just how much the community respects and loves Michael. He's a special guy, a wonderful brother, and he's an exceptional town manager. Michael has always had a passion for public service, just like Dad, who served as chairman for both the Board of Selectmen and School Committee. The single greatest compliment I can give to my brother Michael is to compare him to Dad. Two gentlemen with generous hearts and an incredible capacity to lead and inspire. Michael, your family is very proud of you, and it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyways. We love you. Big brother, on behalf of the entire family, please accept this gift with much love. Love you very much.
As I mentioned earlier tonight, I have the pleasure of serving as the chairman of the Wilmington Board of Selectmen. I've had the pleasure of serving alongside Mike Caira since 1996. We've already introduced a number of former members of the board, but I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge my fellow members with whom I currently am proud to serve. Please welcome first Mr. Michael Shampoo. Mr. Mike McCoy. Mr. Lou Smaglia. And Ms. Judy O'Connell. Also in attendance, I'd like to recognize Mike Shampoo's lovely and obviously very patient wife, Doreen. Mike McCoy's lovely and obviously tolerant wife, Danielle. Lou Samaglia's lovely and obviously visually impaired wife, Mary. And last but not least, I want to recognize Judy O'Connell's date this evening, U.S. Senator Scott Brown. Hey, dream on, Judy. I'd also like to recognize my wife, Jo. She's present here this evening, as usual, to support me and to give of her time, even after a busy day and a busy week, raising a couple of small boys and taking care of a home. And even after running a half marathon for autism last week. See, there I did it. I knew it was only a matter of time. It's my opportunity to get to share some thoughts about Mike. And as you can tell, I can be a sentimental and emotional guy at times. I ask you to bear with me. I'm the kind of guy that I can't even watch Rudy with other people in the room. I watch Brian's song, I can't work for 2 days. But here we go. If you hear my voice crack, just erupt in applause and I'll pull myself back together. When I first ran for selectman, I had some people figure that I was actually running to try and get rid of Mike Caira. Of course, that wasn't true. The fact of the matter is that I really hardly knew the guy. But it didn't take a very long time of working with him that you couldn't be impressed by his abilities. It didn't take a long time to recognize the kind of work ethic he had, and it didn't take a long time to understand the kind of integrity that he possessed. Being a town manager involves a lot of things. And in my mind, one of the things that has made Mike Caira so unique is his ability to combine political acumen with administrative and managerial skill. Being a town manager involves managing money, managing personnel, and managing situations. The manner in which Mike Caira has been able to manage all of these things, much to the chagrin of his political adversaries, much to the frustration of those sitting across from him at the bargaining table, and much to the relief and gratitude of Wilmington residents, has really been nothing short of brilliant. Mike Caira truly is a gifted manager. Of course, while Mike Caira's skill and abilities have earned my respect, it's really his dedication to the job and his commitment to the town that have earned my admiration. Not all that long ago, despite the fine work that Mike had been doing for a dozen years, quite frankly, the dogs were at his heels. People who were supposed to be working for the betterment of the town were trying to undermine him. People who were supposedly players on his team were trying to tackle him. They used fear and hysteria about real problems that needed real leadership to solve. And they enlisted political support disguised as community interest and legal advice, political support disguised as legal advice. They often say that when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Well, I'll tell you one thing. A few years back, a lesser person than Mike Caira, he would have gotten going all right. He would have gotten going to a town down the street or a business that Paul Lonis runs for 20 grand more a year. That's not what Mike did. Instead, he went to work earlier and stayed later. He steadfastly remained true to himself. He continued to speak up as a voice of reason, making bold decisions on environmental issues, taking common sense positions on fiscal matters, from ill-conceived tax schemes to wasteful spending, and advancing important capital improvement projects. He stuck to his guns, and he stuck his neck out. He risked his job, his reputation, and his legacy. In the end, we have much to be proud of here in Wilmington. People in this room have known for a long time now what some other folks have just recently figured out, that we truly do have the best affordable suburb in Massachusetts. And no doubt we can attribute a great deal of our success to Mike Caira's abilities, his impressive skills, and his professionalism. But make no mistake about it, if there is a debt of gratitude that we owe to Mike Caira, it is for his dedication, his perseverance, and his backbone. It is for his willingness to weather the storm and finish what he started. Mike, I'm proud to have served with you. You deserve this honor tonight. You deserve a much-anticipated retirement. I thank you for your leadership, and I'll forever value your friendship. All right, as I gather myself here, I'd like to simply introduce our next speaker, who certainly needs no introduction. He's been a valuable and dedicated employee of the town of Wilmington for approximately 25 years as the assistant town manager. We're very excited and look forward to his filling these gigantic shoes of Mike Caira as our next town manager. He promises not to sing at this retirement party. Please welcome Jeff Hull.
Good evening to Mike and Jane and everyone out there. Please rise. Let's do a rendition. It's an incredible crowd this evening, just a testament to all that Mike has done for the town in so many different ways. Certainly tonight we recognize his 22 years as a town manager, but beyond that, as a selectman, as a moderator, as a coach for basketball, and as just a civic individual. He's given of himself for many, many years, and for that we are greatly appreciative. When I started for the town 25 years ago, Buzz Stepchinski had appointed me, and I served for him for a couple of years. And then Buzz moved on to, I guess, greener pastures, and I was left with a decision. What do I do? I figured, well, you know, there's an opportunity here to pursue the town manager position. Seemed like the logical thing to do. So I put in for it. And ultimately, Mike and I came down as a couple of finalists. And Mike, as a master of the 3-2 vote, ultimately prevailed. You know, so after I was thinking, you know, I was 28 years old at the time, didn't really have any roots in Wilmington, and thought, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll look at another community someplace down the line. And I'll never forget, a few days after the board had made their decision, Mike came into my office, which, if you know the town hall, my old office is where the conference room now is. And I used to be the official door greeter in my spare time, because people would come in and they'd always want to know something, where to go or who to see, and so they'd stop in to see me in the door greeter's office. So Mike came in and he said, he asked if he could speak with me, and he said, you know, I'd really appreciate it and hope that you stay on as the assistant. I'd like your assistance. I'd like your advice in terms of helping me in this transition. And we had a good discussion, and my thought at that point was, he seems sincere and honest. I'll give it a shot and see what happens and maybe stay a few years. And who would have known that 22 years later I'd still be here? And that, in large measure, is due to the relationship that Mike and I have developed over the years. I consider him not only my boss, but certainly a friend and a mentor. Learned a tremendous amount from him. And all I can say to the board who appointed him back in 1990 is, you made an incredible, brilliant decision, both for the town of Wilmington and for me personally. And for that, I think we all should be very grateful. I know Mike is a big baseball guy, and so I came up with a little offering here that I'd like to read to everyone, and it's called The Umpire and the Manager. Mike's called the game for 22 years, the umpire and the manager. He's framed the strike zone, his expectations of us known, the umpire and the manager. Mike's called strike three in many a game to boos and jeers from coaches and fans, the umpire and the manager. When he transformed a department not cooperative or accountable, critics publicly challenged his motives, the umpire and the manager. Mike's patiently listened to fire-breathing coaches protesting his calls at home plate, the umpire and the manager. He calmly responds to town meeting rants with clear, detailed facts and compelling advice, the umpire and the manager. Before his ball games, he'd check out the field to ensure that all was in order, the umpire and the manager. Before town hall opens and after it closes, he's in meetings, on phone calls, or writing town topics, the umpire and the manager. For the batter who's struck by a fastball in tight, Mike cleaned off home plate in compassion, the umpire and the manager. When my father fell ill with terminal cancer, Mike extended time off without question, the umpire and the manager. Mike called each ball game by the rules of the league to honor the sport of his passion, the umpire and the manager. His achievements are many: a new middle school, a new safety building, increasing reserves, and upgraded bond rating were done not for self, but to advantage the town he's so passionate about, the town he grew up and still lives in, the umpire and the manager. And so here we are with 2 outs in the ninth and the game well in hand. Your work here is nearly completed by the umpire and the manager. While the ballpark will change, you're wished many innings of good health and good play. To Mike Caira, all the best, the umpire and the manager. Before I give the mic up, one of the things that I have the honor of doing, and something that Mike has done historically, but is to give a token of the town's appreciation. Of course, this is child protected, so it's going to take a while to get into it. As many of you know, this is an honor that's given to all retiring or most retiring employees, certainly those that have been good employees. There's a few that have missed the opportunity. This thing is like hermetically sealed. We're going green, and this paper is not going to be a thing of the future. I'm thinking of also cutting back, rather than these glass apples, I'm thinking of going with like a plastic apple. I think it would probably save a little money. But this is a token of the town's appreciation for all of Mike's service. Of course, for all of you who may not be aware, this is the famous Baldwin apple, which was rumored to have been first grown in Wilmington over on Chestnut Street, not just coincidentally, not just down the road from where Mike grew up. And so as part of the traditional process here, I'm going to frame this apple and ask Mike to stand next to me and bestow this to him, and as part of that process, make sure that we get the picture of two of the best-looking guys in the room. As you'll see, there's you and me. And then one final thing I'd like to do before I relinquish the podium here is to present Mike with a gift from all of us as part of the evening here. As you know, the part of the proceeds from the dinner this evening went towards a gift, and so with me this evening are Paula Berry and Wendy Martinello, and of course Beverly Dalton from our office. We'd like to present Mike with this gift from all of you. Just so that everybody has a sense of what you gave Mike, it's includes a number of restaurant gift certificates, and quite honestly, I'm not sure what kind of plant that is, but something that doesn't require a lot of maintenance or watering, I think. But it's certainly hardy. And a couple of other gift cards, and again, Mike, best wishes to you and Jane for a long, happy, and healthy retirement.
One of the things that we value in Wilmington is tradition. We're changing up tradition just a touch tonight. Oftentimes the apple is the last gift, but I'd like to, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, offer a gift here. To Mike, in case any of your critics or the board's critics are watching on television, this was not purchased with public funds. We'll just get that commercial right out there. If you could join me, Mike. Again, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, thank you for your service. And we'll let you open it up, and then I'll commentate on what we have. And we figure, since the one thing that Mike is going to have more of these days is time, the Board of Selectmen has seen fit to give him something that will help him keep track of that time for many years to come. Again. As it certainly is a privilege to be part of tonight's celebration, and more so than any other portion of this program, I feel honored to recognize the members of Mike Caira's family. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the man that is here with us tonight, at least in spirit, and who's probably been the most influential figure in Mike's life in terms of what drives him. I think Mike would tell you that it was this man who impressed upon him, both in word and deed, what it means to be a true public servant. Please join me in acknowledging Mike's late father, Aldo Caira. Please also join me in acknowledging a woman that epitomizes grace, dignity, and class, and who continues to actively and proudly stand as one of Mike Caira's biggest fans, his mother, Mrs. Loretta Caira. Mike's four wonderful children are here this evening, and we will have the opportunity to hear from all of them. But before doing that, I'd ask you to join me in thanking and congratulating the individual whom I'm certain has sacrificed more for this town than we will ever know. Mike will be the first to tell you that she is the rock upon which this extraordinary family and his distinguished career have been built. They say that behind every good man is a good woman. That may be true, but in this case, beside this good man is an exceptional woman. Please recognize Mrs. Jane Caira. The first of Mike's four children who wants to offer some thoughts is his youngest, Brian, who's accompanied by his girlfriend, Amanda. Brian is, as I understand it, the new latest and greatest Mr. Caira in town. Please join me.
Thank you, Mr. Newhouse. Most of you are here tonight because you believe that Michael Caira has done an extraordinary job as the town manager of Wilmington for the last 22 years. However, there are four people amongst this crowd who have a completely different perspective from everyone else. These four individuals are here to attest to the fact that even while being a great leader of this fine community, he has also been a tremendous role model, a stellar example, and an exceptional father. Let me begin with the fact that it was very challenging for me to thank my dad in just a few minutes, so I'm not going to apologize for being a bit long-winded this evening. This night is about my dad, after all, and when push comes to shove, I'm his golden boy. I know he'd rather listen to me than anybody else who was here anyways. I have a much different perspective than that of my older siblings. My brother and sisters knew my dad prior to him taking charge in Wilmington. I, however, have been the town manager's son as far back as I can remember. Growing up, there are parts of me that hated the fact that my dad had such an important job. I always found other people getting in the way. If I had a dime for every time someone came over to us while we were out eating dinner, just to say hello, I think I'd be a millionaire. The best part was that about 95% of the time, when the person finally left the table, my dad would look over and give me that look that said, I have absolutely no clue who that person was. Hopefully with my dad retiring, the constant interruptions, questions about whether I can get him to put air conditioning in throughout the entire middle school, complaints about unevenly paved roads, and answering Mr. Newhouse's phone calls during the ninth inning and fourth quarter will start to come to a halt. All of these things have driven me crazy. But recently I was, for whatever reason, able to put some things into perspective. If these things were getting on my nerves, what must my father be going through? And then I realized my father is the only person that I know that no matter what aspect of his life you're dealing with, he's always the person that you depend on. The town he works for depends on him. His siblings, whether older or younger, ask him for advice. His wife asks him, his mother asks him, and of course, his sons and daughters ask him. If I needed help with directions, I asked my dad. If I needed help with a paper, I asked my dad. My first phone call usually goes to him. Of course, there are those few scenarios where I really can't rely on my father. It's always kind of struck me that a man who was able to flawlessly orchestrate a budget of an entire town could never figure out how to operate a VCR, never mind a DVD player. So putting that piece of the puzzle to the side, my dad is about as dependable as they come. And dependable people tend to accomplish a lot of things. And when I think about all of what my father has accomplished in this town, I find one thing always coming to my mind. And it's probably not anything that anyone is thinking of right now. It's the simple fact that at not one point during my father's tenure as town manager did he ever, under any circumstance, no matter how hard it may have been, look into the crowd, or in some instances to his left or to his right, and say, why are they still talking? Instead, he would just adjust his glasses and make this face. At home, We knew that was the "I can't believe they really think they know what they're talking about" face. Dad, it truly takes a special kind of individual to deal with the naysayers and the disgruntled people that you have somehow managed to tolerate for such a long period of time. For that alone, I think you deserve some quality recognition. My dad has dealt with a lot of things throughout his career. His job has demanded the time and energy that only a person of the highest character could give. But above all that, he has always found a way to put his job second to his family. From games to school concerts to college visits, we were always his number one priority. Always putting your family first is one of the many traits that I have acquired from my dad. In addition to that, I have adopted his unparalleled charisma, his effortless charm, and his boyish good looks. Apparently, I missed the memo about the whole humility thing. I have also acquired his very unique, childlike sense of humor. For most of you, my father's sense of humor doesn't expand much more than the number of jokes that he has recycled time and time again and used during his many public appearances. For people close to him, though, we know that he is one funny guy. For example, we know about his made-up language, his familiar nonsensical proverbs, his ridiculous poems, his catchy jingles, the shot that made Milwaukee famous, his random nicknames, and his ability to make the words "sick tuna" seem like a term of endearment. He's also a man of several hidden talents. His rendition of "God Bless America" would rival any Irish tenor, and if you have ever seen him on the dance floor, you know he has some rhythm. He is also, like my brother and me, one hell of an eater. Michael, of course, has taken this to a new level. I had to lie and tell him it was a buffet tonight just so he would show up. Some of my fondest memories of my dad include food, like our special North End extravaganzas, our half-school days at Pizza Hut, him letting me stir the cream into his coffee at breakfast, after golf stops at Fred Frank's, and of course, eating as much as we can at the hot dog safari, and then covering the kitchen table with all of our free loot. When asked to describe my dad, a whole smorgasbord of adjectives come to mind. Thoughtful, caring, witty, passionate, bald, generous, cerebral, and even resilient. My father on numerous occasions had to keep going until he got what he wanted. Take my family. He had a smart kid, a personable kid, an athletic kid, and then finally, 10 years later, he managed to concoct a perfect mixture, and poof, here I am today. A lot of boys will tell you when they're young that they want to grow up and be like their father. I have always had mixed emotions about this. Part of me has a very strong desire to emulate my dad in as many ways as possible. The other part of me struggles with the fact that it's really, really challenging to walk in his shoes. He casts quite the shadow, and the model and example that he has set is of the highest character a single person can embody. And even though we're both referred to as Mr. Caira now, that in no way means that we share the same character makeup. I can only hope to someday down the road become a fraction of the individual that my father is. Michael Caira is a man who exudes excellence in every aspect of his life. He's a top-notch son, who I know makes both his father and mother extremely proud. I'm sure somewhere Gramps is having a room temperature moxie for him right now. He is a funny, be-there-for-you kind of brother, a caring, loving husband, an endearing, proud grandfather, and he is the dad that every child should have the opportunity to get to know. I'll be foolish if I didn't mention the most prominent reason why this man was able to be such a great father. That is, his wife Jane is also one terrific mom. Like my father, I've shared many special memories with my mom. I remember playing Old Maid and Crazy Eights when I was sick and had to stay home from school. I also remember cutting out sugar cookies and dyeing Easter eggs. I can recall her taking me into the driveway and teaching me how to swing a baseball bat. And even though she might be the reason why I was never able to hit, the memories we shared will last forever. My mother was just as instrumental at raising the four of us kids as my dad was. Interestingly enough, though, she doesn't know how to work the DVD player either. There are certain things I'll always remember about my dad, or Billy, as I like to call him. I'll remember him walking through the garage door, hearing his keys jingle as he set them on the set of drawers in the junk room, and him coming over to me with his pocket open nice and wide so I could slide my hand down and see what type of candy he brought me home from the office. Of course, I lost my spot. I'll always remember that he was in the bleachers at nearly every game I played, and even if he wasn't there, he made it a point to tell me, do well, be well, play well. And I'll always be grateful for the fact that no matter how aggravated he was at work, how fed up he was with some of the issues that he had to deal with, he always, 100% of the time, came home with a smile on his face. While studying at Merrimack College, I had a very special opportunity to address the student body and faculty, as well as members of my family. My dad was interviewed by the Lowell Sun a few days prior to my speech and was asked about his thoughts on the matter. He told the Sun that the greatest compliment you can get as a parent is when someone without any prompting makes a very favorable comment about your child. That happens all the time with Brian, he said. Well, I'm here to tell you all tonight that the greatest compliment you can get as a son is when someone without any prompting makes a very favorable comment about your parent. And that happens all the time with my dad. People have asked me, so what now for your father? Do you think he'll travel? Do you think he'll golf? I'm sure in many ways my dad will continue to do what he already does with his very little free time. He'll drink a whole lot of coffee, solve a lot of Sudoku puzzles, complete every crossword, and read every page of the newspaper. He'll watch a lot of Phantom Gourmet, the Food Network, Travel Channel, and even WCTV. He'll still refuse to answer the phone no matter how close he is to it. And as long as I'm around, he'll call me in from a different room just to see if I want to get him a drink or pass him the remote. And for the first time in forever, I won't be Mr. Caira's son. Instead, he's going to be Mr. Caira's dad. But above all, he'll continue doing his job, not as your town manager, but as a top-notch son, a funny be-there-for-you kind of brother, a caring, loving husband, and he's certainly going to devote a lot of his time to being that endearing, proud grandfather that he so enjoys being. For me, I know he will continue to be the best father a son could ask for. And for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you, and I love you.
Over the years, as Mike and I would have conversations in his office, I felt as though I was watching his children grow up and become the special people that they have. But in the last few years, I've had the occasion to really get to know next speaker a little bit, Mike's daughter Angela, and just simply put, one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met. Angela?
Thank you, Mr. Newhouse, for your fine comments. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to say a few words about my father. And I promise that I'm just going to say a few words about my father. Dad, you taught me to be strong, brave, and humble. Gracious, kind, and fair. You taught me that winning isn't always getting the last word, and losing teaches lessons. You taught me that resiliency is a skill, and listening is an art form. You taught me that words are precious, not to waste them, and attitude is everything, so use it wisely. You taught me that no one wants to see you smile if it's fake, but everyone wants to hear your laugh when it's contagious. You taught me that finishing last can sometimes be your first moment in glory, but finishing first means nothing if you cheated your way to the top. You taught me that integrity is not the most common attribute in folks, but it darn well should be, and gloating makes even Miss America ugly. You taught me when the odds are against you, work harder, and the only time you fail is when you give up. You taught me that silence is often a blessing in disguise, and noise sometimes distracts you from the most precious things in life, the little things. You taught me that true love is mutual, honesty is rare, and work ethic is difficult to find, but don't stop looking until you find it. You taught me that saying goodbye isn't easy, especially to those you've loved and lost. But you should always welcome the opportunity to say hello to a new friend. You taught me that waking up is sometimes tough, but not getting up is worse. Crying is not a sign of weakness, if your tears are genuine. And saying I'm sorry doesn't mean anything unless it's sincere. You taught me that the most powerful freedom is being yourself. But it's so much easier when you are appreciated and loved. You taught me all of these things and much more through showing, not telling. You taught me to love with actions and words, not one or the other. And be respectful, even when you are disrespected. Thank you for loving our family. We are a reflection of you. Thank you for loving your community. It is a reflection of you. You never complained about working too much or getting paid too little. You never created problems, you solved them. You were the voice of reason for all Wilmington residents and the most charismatic speaker this town has ever had the privilege to hear. I wish I knew more people who modeled your behavior, and I, for one, hope to emulate you in every aspect of my life. You taught me 4 core values: love your family, respect everyone, honesty is the best policy, and never stop caring about what you do and how you do it. My strength, motivation, conviction, and perseverance are gifts from you. The greatest compliment I've ever received is, "You take after your father." Well, I certainly hope that's true. You may only be a town manager to many people in this town, or to most people in this room even, but to me, you are a true legend. Simply stated, my father, our town manager of 22 years, is an extraordinary man, and no one deserves this recognition and praise more than he does. In fact, it's long overdue, but we all already know that. And now it will take me longer to turn the page than read the entire speech. Thank you for celebrating my father's legacy. Dad, your dedication, devotion, and sheer passion for Wilmington are unmatched and irreplaceable. You will be dearly missed at the town hall and treasured always. Congratulations on your retirement. I love you. Enjoy the next chapter with Mom.
Mike McCoy, all that weight that you lost, I'm looking at our next speaker, and I think I found it. Back a few years ago, when things were not always easy, 2 Monday nights a month, I always appreciated this next guy, just spur of the moment, watching TV or whatever he was doing at home, and dropping in just as a quiet, silent show of support, and as you can imagine, an imposing presence. Really glad to have you here, Mike. Glad you're on my side. Welcome to you and your wife, Kristen. The floor is yours.
Apparently, Mr. Newhouse didn't get the memo that we Cairas like to have the last word. But good for you, there was a ranking that just came across the table that said you are indeed the #1 lawyer in Wilmington, but unfortunately you are ranked 3rd among the best-looking Michaels on the stage right now. I really am grateful to have the opportunity to speak tonight, and I know I speak for my brother and sisters when I say we are thankful to the planners of the evening for allowing each of us to say a few words, even if my brother really is long-winded. We consider ourselves very fortunate to be able to publicly honor our father, especially since we have had to share him with you for the last 22 years. 22 years. Wow, Dad. It is an incredible feat. Serving in a position of leadership and authority, and doing so with grace and humility, is so very admirable. And I must add, it was an incredibly successful tenure. But I'm not here tonight to tout my father's accomplishments as your town manager. Instead, I hope to shed some light on some of his other amazing accomplishments during the last 2+ decades. These accomplishments have not been done as Mr. Caira, but as Dad. Not as your town manager, but as my father. In the last 22 years, my dad has been able to personally hand a diploma to his 4 children as we crossed the same stage he crossed in 1967. He attended football games at Boston College to watch his eldest daughter twirl her flag. He attended sporting events at Regis College to listen to the voice of the Beacons. He traveled all across New England and beyond to watch me play as a member of the Assumption College football team. And he traveled down 125 to watch his youngest son sit on the bench at Merrimack basketball. Although he didn't like that last part all that much, he was always there no matter what. He watched all of us graduate from these institutions and go on to serve as teachers, a guidance counselor, and ultimately a principal. He welcomed a son-in-law and daughter-in-law to the family and became a grandfather 5 times. And he did all of these things hand in hand with a woman with whom he shared 22 anniversaries. Throughout the entire tenure, my mom has been the perfect wife, mother, and now grandmother. She has quietly and proudly stood beside a man in the public eye. She worked as a stay-at-home mom. I know that's the toughest job of all. And an educational assistant. But above all, she has been my dad's #1 fan, supporter, and confidant. Late nights in room 22, Saturdays at town hall, and way too many reheated dinners never got in the way of the greatest married couple I know. My parents have worked together these past 22 years, and even more, they have created a fantastic family over the last 39 years. While we are here to honor my father as a town manager, it would be unfair to not mention that my mom has been one hell of a first lady. Now back to the man with the best hairline in Wilmington. Sorry, Mr. Newhouse, my dad made bald look cool before you graduated from law school. As most of you are well aware, my father is an avid sports fan. Over the last 22 years, we have watched so many incredible moments together. My dad celebrated with the family as the Patriots won 3 Super Bowls and the Celtics lifted banner number 17 to the rafters. He watched the Red Sox win 2 World Series and made sure no one cracked open the bottle of the champagne before the last out was made. And I would be remiss not to mention all the times we were told to be quiet in the living room as we watched his Boston College Eagles defeat Notre Dame on the gridiron or North Carolina on the basketball court. In retirement, I hope you can enjoy many more sporting events, travel to more BC games, perhaps complete your goal of visiting every major league ballpark, and enjoy all the pregame buffets without your cell phone on, waiting for a phone call from a selectman in crisis. My dad has also watched hundreds of Little League games, coached 7 years worth of travel basketball, and has even played a few rounds of golf. Hopefully, during your retirement, you can perhaps join your good friend Skip for a lesson. The folks at Hillview would certainly appreciate not having to wear a helmet every time you tee up a drive. Clearly, athletics has been a major part of my dad's life, and probably the most significant way in which the two of us have bonded over the years. This unbreakable bond began when I was very young. I was privileged to get a first-hand view of my dad working as an umpire, like Mr. Hull spoke of. Before he became town manager, he was a great umpire. Truthfully, I have always held a bit of resentment toward the position that took away my father's passion. My dad was a great umpire, and I used to travel with my hero around the state to watch him stand stoic behind home plate. I watched my dad handle crazy coaches with ease and keep his cool under the pressure of high school state championships and ECAC college tournament games. His training as an umpire proved to come in handy at future meetings when dealing with crazy people who put his patience to the test. But my father is much more than a sports fan and much more than a town manager. He's an accomplished poet. At least Brian and I think so. And we have shared one of his poems with many of our students. I don't want to get any of the animal lovers in the audience upset, so I won't share the poem, but let's just say it's about a bird who comes to a rather untimely demise. He does a mean impression of Louis Armstrong, belts out one of the greatest renditions of God Bless America I've ever heard, runs a charcoal grill like it's nobody's business, and he is the leader of an amazing whistling quartet. And because of my dad, it is impossible for my wife to listen to the song The First Noel without breaking into laughter. Amazingly, he can literally tell you how to get anywhere in Massachusetts without looking at a map. This particular skill is very important, since he has no idea how to turn on a computer or program a GPS. And most of you know my dad is a pretty funny guy, but my friends have really come to know the lighter side of my father, and they affectionately refer to him as Senior. Two of these friends have moved their families to Wilmington, partly because of the manner in which Senior has led this town, but mostly because they really enjoy pizza and donuts. I do too, Mr. Newhouse. These friends and all of you have come to honor my father tonight, and it is truly representative of all the folks who have grown to respect my dad as a leader, colleague, and friend. There are a few folks who unfortunately could not be with us tonight. First, my daughters Caroline and Anna and my niece Sammy. They send a big hug and a kiss to Yo. It's hard to believe my dad could be better at something than being a town manager, but he has perfected the art of being a grandfather. Other than Yo's girls, there are two other individuals who truly would have been proud to be in attendance this evening. My dad was my Nana's favorite, and she undoubtedly is looking down on us tonight thinking how proud she is of her son-in-law. After all, he has been a fantastic husband to her beloved Jane, and she would want to honor him. And I know I speak for my entire family when I say my grandfather would have been so very proud to watch with my grandmother their eldest son retire from this position. My father learned his leadership ability from his father. And as a young professional just beginning my career as the boss, I find myself always asking, WWDD, what would Dad do? Something tells me when my father's going like this, he's asking himself the same exact question. I know for sure my dad learned from my grandfather to be honest, forthright, passionate, honorable, hardworking, loyal, and most importantly, to always be a man who puts family first. My grandfather taught my dad to be a great father and a dedicated professional. We have all benefited from these lessons. Now, there's another individual who could not be here. My Uncle Kenny actually passed along a message from the great Francis Frantu, member of the Order of Jungusians, which is a fictional organization invented by my dad and his siblings as children. He wants you to pace the tart, a saying that has come to mean so many things to my family. See, you don't know everything there is to know about my dad. But for those of you who could join us tonight, I want to leave you with one last thought. No matter how many hours he worked, how many jobs he saved, and how much money he put into a rainy day account for the town, I know that you never came first. As much as he loves his town, and as much as he has loved this job, I have never, for a moment, in the last 22 years questioned what was most important to my father. He's the ultimate family man, a loving and supportive husband, a compassionate and generous father, and the most caring and funny grandfather a kid could ever wish for. You have taught me many things over the years, Dad. You taught me how to hit a baseball, write a speech, work a lawnmower, and drive a car. Brian also missed out on that whole lawnmower thing. You have made me laugh, watched me play, and supported me during challenges. Most importantly, though, you have shown me what it means to be a great father and a good man. I am proud to be Michael Caira Jr. I am proud to say my dad is the town manager. And I am proud to say before you tonight that I love my father. So, Dad, I'll leave you with this last phrase that you've always shared with me. Enjoy your retirement. Do well, be well, play well.
As fine a job as Mike's three children have already done, it'll come as no surprise when we hear the last speaker here, his oldest daughter, Jennifer Bolanos.
Thanks, Mike. First, I would like to thank all of you for being here and for helping my dad celebrate a remarkable 22 years as Wilmington's town manager. I was a high school student when my dad was first appointed. My biggest concern at the time was that I could no longer work as a lifeguard at Silver Lake because my dad would not hire me. Little did I know that 22 years later, my dad would be recognized for making Wilmington one of the best communities in the United States to live. Everyone here tonight knows about Mike Caira's success as town manager. I have the honor of talking about the success Mike Caira has had as a dad. I would like to take this opportunity to thank him for the many lessons he has taught me. Thank you for showing me that while work is important, family always comes first. You would be at recitals, games, and track meets in between meetings to show your support. Thank you for your constructive criticism. You never made me feel bad about striking out or coming in last. Instead, you gave me pointers on how to improve. Thank you for not giving me money for a good report card. You taught me getting good grades was expected, and a good education was the key to a successful life. Thank you for always taking the high road. You have taught me that everyone deserves to be respected, even though at times individuals can be infuriating. Thank you for being my editor. I have never submitted anything without showing you first. It was weird not to have you tweak this for me. Thank you for encouraging me to join the track team. I never would have guessed that at some point I would actually run for fun and pay to run in a race. Thank you for sharing your alma mater with me. It was especially great having you act as marshal at my graduation, even though you escorted in the School of Management. I am proud to call myself a fellow Eagle. Thank you for taking time to be silly. Whether you were playing Name That Tune or making up a game, you were always there to make me laugh. Thank you for always including ice cream. It didn't matter if we went to a Girl Scout square dance, mini golfing, or a BC basketball game, the day ended with ice cream. I firmly believe this is why I am addicted today. Thank you for driving all over creation until you found the perfect stuffed elephant for my first Christmas, and then for the elephant you gave me on my wedding day. I know that all I have to do is lift my trunk and you will be there. Thank you for showing me how to be a good parent. I can only hope to instill the same values and work ethic in Christian, Allison, and Samantha that you have given me. I am proud to be a lifelong resident of Wilmington, but more importantly, I am proud to be your daughter. Thank you for being the kind of grandfather to my kids that I had in your father. Although I may not always agree with the money my kids get for their report cards, or the extra raisinets, I know you learned from the best. I would be remiss, however, if I did not recognize my mom. As the saying goes, behind every good man is a great woman. I do not think my dad could have been as successful if he did not have the support of my mother. Whether she was working as a chauffeur or a short order cook, she was always there. Many nights she would make us dinner and cook again later when my dad came home from a meeting. I know that it wasn't always easy for my mom to have to listen to some of the critics. She handled all of the criticism with grace and never gave anyone any reason to question her integrity. My parents have also had to delay celebrating their anniversary on more than one occasion due to town meetings. I hope that next April they can celebrate their 40th with each other instead of all of Wilmington's residents. Many people have asked me over the past year what my dad is going to do. I am guessing, whatever it is, it will include the newspaper, a cup of coffee, and the Phantom Gourmet. Whatever my parents choose to do, I wish them both nothing but the best. Happy retirement to two people who deserve it more than anyone I know. I love you. I would now like to have my sister Angela and my brothers Michael and Brian join me in order to present our parents with tokens of our appreciation. Mom, we hope you wear this and think of us. And Dad, we hope you always live by the words that have always meant so much to us.
We save the best for last. Please stand and recognize Mike Caira.
Good morning. Thank you. It is with great humility that I stand before you this evening to accept your nomination as President of the United States of America. I'm sorry, it's just that I found Bruce Tarr's briefcase the other day and that was in it. Earlier tonight, my wife had said to me that she's a big Bruce Tarr fan, and she said she could listen to him all night. I said, don't worry, you will. It is quite late, and I will try to keep this brief. First of all, thank you all for being here. I know that some of you have had to leave. For those of you who have stuck around, I hope you can see why Jane and I are so very, very proud of the wonderful family that we have. It was just remarkable. I truly am humbled, however, by this wonderful turnout and grateful to all of you who chose to spend this evening with my family and me. And I am so very appreciative to Beverly Dalton and the staff, Mike Newhouse, Jeff, Wendy, Paula, all who worked so hard to organize what for me has been an incredibly memorable event. I do want to also acknowledge WCTV for the earlier slideshow, which I hope to enjoy, and also for taping this evening's event, which is scheduled for airing in February of 2013. And when it is put on, it will be on 12 times a week for the next 2 years. Mike Newhouse, a great job as the Master of Ceremonies. You kept the program moving slowly. You introduced most everybody in the audience. Might have been easier just to have a roll call, I think. But he did prove what I knew all along. Anybody can do this. Mike knows that I'm kidding. He's really a modest person, with much to be modest about. Actually, I appreciate Mike having recognized so many folks. It is like a who's who, and I'm certainly not going to want to offend anybody by not saying thank you. So please accept my apologies in advance if you weren't mentioned or if I don't mention you, because I'm certainly grateful for all that you have done. My remarks tonight are intended to be a thank you. I have no intention of highlighting the accomplishments of the past 22 years, because I wouldn't want to embarrass my predecessor, Buzz Stepchinsky. I'm only kidding. I don't know if Buzz is still here. It's probably long past his bedtime, but I want to tell him that he certainly, along with a wonderful and dear friend who I had the privilege to eulogize, Sterling Morris, and who was a mentor to me, both of those people did such a wonderful job when they were here in the town of Wilmington. You know, and people talked about the shelf life of a town manager. And really, you know, 22 years is, I suppose, a long time in town manager years. It's a century and a half, let me tell you, because for the first 16 years, I'm the 9th town manager. For the first 16 years of existence, the position was held by 6 people. And for the next, what's 67 minus 212? I guess it's 45. For the next 45 years, there were just 3 people. So I think that talks about the commitment that the town of Wilmington now has for professional government. I want to thank all of the speakers. Certainly Dave Boeri, he's still here, a classmate of mine. What he didn't tell you is when we both ran for president, he was humble. He was elected president. I know it's hard to believe after having watched him up here. Dave used to be somebody, and I'm appreciative that he came here. You know, he used to be a real big shot on television. And then he discovered that he really had a face for radio, and he's now at WBUR. I've got to acknowledge one fellow who's here. Jimmy Capozzi and I are probably the oldest friends. Jimmy, when we moved in 1958, Jimmy's family moved right next door about a month or so later, and the families became fast friends. And I'm just delighted that he's here. And in terms of the word fast, I remember Jimmy, who, like many of you folks here, gave service to his country and did so honorably. I think there was one point when he came back on leave and we got together, and Jimmy liked fast cars and fast horses. And we took a ride to Scarborough once. And so we decided to see how quickly we could get there. Nobody knew where we were going. We were underage. We weren't supposed to be going to Scarborough Downs. But we went up there and got the bright idea to see if I would time how fast he could go between mile markers. Jimmy later became a registry cop. True story. Joe Ferretra has left. I want to just mention that he was here. Joe and I worked together in the governor's office. It was wonderful seeing him. I hadn't seen him in so many years. He became a clerk of court in East Boston. He was much smarter than me. I left with a low license plate number. But certainly it was good to see him. Paul Lonis, who came up here and did his shtick and lied throughout his entire presentation. He's older than I am, and in 1968, I was 19, and he told you that he was 17. So I'll leave it at that. He's been a phenomenal friend, a great friend, someone who has been very, very successful in life, but who's never forgotten where he's come from. I tell you one little story about Paul. My kids adore him, the girls especially. He told them when they were 8, 9 years old that when it was time for them to go to the prom, he was going to drive them to the prom. Now, not just in anything, but Paul's been successful and very philanthropic, but he drove him in a vintage Rolls Royce that he has. And I can still remember all of the chauffeurs out in the high school standing, and Paul had a little black hat on, and he stood there, and I knew that he could have bought and sold the entire company of folks out there. But he took his time out of his busy day and his busy schedule to do that, and he supports so many charities, and it's delightful to see him here. I did do some work in the thrift store, there's no question about it, but what I was actually very good at was packing rolls. And I can tell you that I was the best roll packer in all of Twinkieville. There's no question about that in my mind. Paul was a troublemaker. He would throw a muffin up into the top, whatever it's called, and it would foul up everything. Reed Hillman, who was here earlier, was also part of that group. Reed Hillman, if you might recall the name, a good friend of Paul and I's. He was a candidate for lieutenant governor with Kerry Healy. Before that, he served a few terms in the state house and the state legislature. But more than that, he was the head of the state police, the colonel in the state police. And he's just grateful that when he got on the job, they weren't doing Corys. My friend Joe Malone was supposed to be here, and he is a dear friend. Joe has had some medical issues of late and had to have some surgery. He's doing well. He's on the way to recovery. I felt bad that he wasn't in here because I certainly wanted to say some terrible things about him. Somebody said that I ran Joe Malone's campaign. It's true. He called me up. He asked me if I would run his campaign. I left a good job as the National Executive Director of the Sons of Italy to run his campaign against Ted Kennedy. That shows you what my thought process was as he invited me to be the captain of the Titanic. Jimmy Stewart, thank you so much for your comments and for making sure to remind me about Kevin McDonald. I certainly appreciate those good words, but more importantly, thank you for all that you've done for the town over these many, many years. It's true that you succeeded me as a selectman, you succeeded me as the town moderator, and you were rejected when you applied for town manager. I'm sorry. I want to thank all of the organizations who came by. Chris Neville from the Rotary, who now that he's retired, he's got more guts. Brought me that silly thing of chocolate milk or whatever it was, but that was very nice. I really appreciate, though, the recognition from the Rotary and the donation in my name as a Paul Harris Fellow. It's a wonderful organization, certainly worthy of of everything they do. To the 4th of July committee, Scott Garant is right, I hate the carnival. You know, my kids all said that I was honest, and I want to tell you, I mean, why do we want to invite such a high class of folks to come into the town each year? Well, we do. I want to thank the Boy Scouts for their gift, the Sons of Italy for coming by and honoring me and doing it so especially well with my beautiful niece, Amy, who did just such a spectacular job when she was up here. And also to thank the Youth Soccer Association and all of the groups that I've had the pleasure of working with for their support of the community. They do so very much for everyone. The schools, you've heard about the schools. There's been a Caira in the Wilmington Public School System every year since 1958. My nephew, David, leaves this year. He graduates from Wilmington High School. My nephew, Mark, goes to Shawshing Tech, and I consider that a part of the school system certainly as well. But now two of our beautiful grandchildren are in the school system. So we expect that a family member is going to be a part of that for a long, long time. I was touched by a couple of folks who went out today or last night or whenever it was and put "Thanks, Mr. Caira" across the tennis court in cups. They spent a lot of money on those cups, I suspect, but it was very heartwarming to see. To the schools and the sentiments from Joanne, I send them right back at you, Joanne, and to all of those who have served our schools. There's nothing more important that we can do but support education. It is the one constant thing that makes this life better, and we want to make it better for our children and grandchildren. And it is just so important, and it's so gratifying to me that all four of our children went into education. Jennifer was a teacher in the Lawrence Public School System. No easy feat. She really worked hard there for many years. Michael is now a principal of an elementary school in Ashland. We're very proud of his success. Angela is the go-to guidance counselor at Shawshing Tech. I think any of you who have had your children go there know how much she does for everybody there. And the new Mr. Caira is at the middle school. Brian is, now when I go out onto the fields and somebody yells, "Mr. Caira," and I turn around, if I'm with Brian, it's for him, it's not for me, but I'm going to get used to that, I guess. So the fact that they've all went into education, I think is so very, very important. I'm delighted that Jerry O'Donnell was here, and Charlie Lyons, two superintendents, and Lori Nielsen, and Kate Burnham, and Paul Ruggiero, and all of the folks in the school department that have come. I'm so grateful for all of them. One quick story that I want to say about when I was in school. Is Mr. Kelly still here? Mr. Kelly was here earlier. Where are you? There's Mr. Kelly. Absolutely a legend in this community. I had the misfortune to be in a smart group in junior high, and I recognized pretty early on, being in Mr. Kelly's advanced math class in 7th and 8th grade, that I wasn't as smart as I thought. And I can remember a story, and Mr. Kelly can tell you where you sat. He told me that the other day. We were watching the road race the other day. Kristen ran the 5K, Jennifer ran the marathon. I went to get the donuts. And we were talking with Mr. Kelly, and he said, "Now you sat," and he told me exactly where I sat. He knows all kinds of stories about every one of his students, and I'm so grateful that he never, at least I don't think he's ever shared this one, but I guess I'm going to tell you my little story. I can remember one day you know, he'd call us up to go up to the board, and I was either in the 7th and 8th grade, I don't remember, he probably does. And I was called up to go to the board to do put a problem on that was given to us for homework. And of course, I didn't do my homework. And it's amazing how things have changed over the time. I didn't do my homework, but my very, very close friend, Joey Gallagher, who was incredibly smart, was sitting right beside me. Joey went on to West Point, had a distinguished career in the military, is now down in Virginia with a wonderful family, talked to him every once in a while. And so I got up out of my chair and I grabbed his paper. And I went up to the board, and the only problem was, you heard what Beverly said about my handwriting? Not a clue. I should have taken Boeri's, but I knew it was going to be wrong. So I was up there, you know, and struggling, and Mr. Kelly came over, looked at the paper, and he yelled at Joey Gallagher and not me. So I want to thank you for that, Mr. Kelly, all these years. I want to thank all of the town officials, past and present, all of the members of the Board of Selectmen that I work with. It's true that when I was appointed, it was on a 3-2 vote. Two of those three people are here tonight, Dan Ballou and Bob Kane. The other was Mark Haldane. Those three folks put me over the top. They could have just as easily appointed Jeff Hull, who was modest about not having been quite ready at that point, but he certainly was, and he's going to do a great job, I know. But he can be satisfied with the fact that they voted for him 5-0 on his appointment, and that's a great testimony. So to all the boards, past and present, who I've had the pleasure to work with, for the most part, there were some shaky moments. There's no question about it. You know that shelf life I told you about as a town manager. Sometimes they wanted to end that shelf life before the expiration date, and that was a problem. But especially in the early 90s, it was a problem. But I used to carry my resume everywhere I went, and it said, Joe Malone, State Treasurer. So I had that just in case. I had a standing offer from Joe to join him if the going got tough, but I wasn't gonna give in. This was too important of a community to give in. And I want to thank the current members of the Board of Selectmen, Mike and Mike and Mike. They can figure out the order. Lou and Judy, they all work so very hard, just as all of their predecessors have, as volunteers, and the time they put in is truly, truly impressive. I want to thank all of the department heads. We've accomplished an awful lot together, there's no question about that. I appreciate Mike Bagonis's kind words, who spoke on behalf of the department heads. My sentiments for all of those people, it's difficult to express. They do so much, and they're so unheralded, but they do it with all of the people who work with them, whether they're deputies or assistants, or whether they're support staff, whether they're out there making sure the schools are clean, or the administrative offices and the financial offices are taken care of, the elderly are being serviced, the recreation and library programs second to none, the fire and police that make us proud every day, and all of the employees who have accomplished so much together. I can tell you that I am typically, and this is not unusual, I am typically receiving comments, favorable comments about the quality of service that this town provides, and people talk about the employees in an extraordinary way. Now, sometimes I do get the occasional complaint, and I did, in fact, get what I hope to be my last official complaint at work this morning. I'm not answering the phone tomorrow. I'm going to be there, but so this had to be the last one. A gentleman called me today at about 10:30, and he called to say that last night at around, or this morning at around 4 in the morning, a large plane flew over his house. What was I going to do about it? True story. What was I going to do about it? And I thought quickly and said, you need to call back on Monday and ask for Jeff Hull, who's in charge of aviation services. My thanks, of course, to all of the past department heads that were represented today by my dear friend Lynn Duncan, and I know she's a Democrat. She should be a Republican because she never forgets. I did offer her that lunch. I've never paid. I'll have time now to go to lunch. I know she wants to try out Sonic, and and all of the department heads. I'm not going to cite you by name, but you know how important you've been. Lynn was actually the first department head that I hired. 1 week after I got there, the then planning director came in and told me she was leaving. And we went out and found the very best planning director we could find, and Lynn certainly did a great job, and so hasn't everybody else who've come here. What's important, I think, as a town manager is picking the right people, and we've picked the right people over the years, and I think they prove that day in and day out. Delighted that my own personal staff, both past and present, are here. I certainly want to acknowledge Ann Whitney, who was, I'm not sure if Ann is here. I know she was intending on being here, but she worked in the office. And then for many, many years, there was a triumvirate of 3 people, Alma, Peggy, and Beverly, and each of them brought so much to me personally and to the organization, and we are all not only colleagues, but all very, very good friends. Peggy Tarantino, who was acknowledged earlier singularly by Mike Newhouse, and deservedly so, welcomed me when I came in. Buzz had just actually promoted her to that position, and then he left. And so this guy that she didn't know came in, and, you know, I wasn't the popular choice. The department heads, except for Patty, didn't want me. And I guess who could blame them? So I had to prove myself, just as I did to the members of the Board of Selectmen. But I never had to prove myself to Peggy. She was absolutely fantastic for all those years. She was my right arm. She was the perfect person for the job, the perfect buffer when she had to be. She would let me know what I needed to know, and she was a person who, like me, always put family first, and I think I admire that perhaps most of all about Peggy Tarantino. So I'm just thrilled that I had the opportunity to work with her, and probably one of the greatest things that she did was she trained her successor, and that's Beverly Dalton. And Beverly has, as the administrative assistant, cultivated a wonderful office that includes 2 absolute stars in my mind, Paula Barry and Wendy Martinello. who I enjoy coming in to go to work every day and working with them and being able to proudly point to an exemplary staff. Beverly Dalton, who it's true when she tells you that she can't read my writing all the time, she now can read it better than I, just as she told you. I am what they call technology challenged. There's no question about that. I'm one of the few people in America that handwrites his emails. So when you get an email from me at 8 o'clock at night, that means Beverly's working. When you get an email from me on the weekend, that means Beverly's working. So people talk about my work ethic and the hours that I work. Well, right alongside of me has been just a tremendous support system for me, and I'm going to miss coming in and working with her every day and enjoying the fruits of her labor. I always get a kick out of it. I could be sitting in a meeting with Joanne, and she has one of those little tweeter gadgets or whatever they call them, you know, those little iPods, whatever. And she'll get a little beep, and she'll look at it, and then she'll kind of look up at me, and she said, "I just got your email." And I tell her I'm good. Well, you know, what does she want from me? To Jeff Hull, the town of Wilmington has made an incredibly wise choice in selecting this man. I am so grateful for two things, three really. Number one, of course, is friendship. Number two is the fact that he willingly stayed for all those years when he could have gone, and we had discussions about that. And he was, on occasion, he didn't tell you this, but on occasion he applied for other positions, and he would immediately be a finalist because he is that well thought of in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts among municipal circles. And I would go in and talk with him and say, hey, look, if this is what you want to do, I'm going to support you all the way. But I want you to know that I hope you stay. And each time he decided to stay, and I became a better manager for it. And finally, the other thing I want to mention is that he will, without question, be an incredibly, incredibly good manager. I'm confident that the town of Wilmington will be well served under Jeff's leadership. He's a skilled professional municipal manager of unquestionable integrity who will bring energy, innovation, and know-how to this position, and he's going to make all of us, and I'm a resident, and I'm going to be very proud because he's going to make all of us very, very proud. I am so delighted that the selectmen went out there and didn't go through some phony worldwide search, knew they had the right guy here in Wilmington, and made the right call. I want to tell Jeff one thing. If he is ever in need of a boost in spirit, do what I would do. Visit a kindergarten classroom. Their energy is contagious. Their innocence is enlightening. They're not real sure who you are, but they sure are excited that you are there. I remember in the programs that we ran, one day, one of the teachers, and whether it was at the Boutwell or the Wildwood, and so many teachers here from the Boutwell School, well, we started the old Foghorn Leghorn programs, and God bless you for keeping it going all those years and making up those songs about Mr. Caira and all those wonderful things. It was always very, very heartwarming. I can remember, though, that one person asked a student, do you know who this is? And this little boy was raising his hand like crazy, and they called on little Johnny, and he said, George Bush. He had the right party. I'm very grateful for the outpouring of kindness and well wishes, for the cards that I've been receiving, for the emails, for the countless visits, for the well wishes, for all the gifts, certainly all the wonderful gifts and presentations this evening. It's sort of been, over the last several months really, it's almost been a little bit of a goodbye tour. It started really at the Boutwell School at the kindergarten program when they presented me with my own foghorn leghorn hat and T-shirt, and they know how much that meant to me because they know how much the kindergarten students have meant to me over the years. It went on over to the 4th of July celebration when the 4th of July, unbeknownst to me, honored both Jane and I, and that was wonderful. It went to the school opening that I've had the privilege of speaking at every year with Joanne, and before her, Bill McAuliffe and Jerry O'Donnell, and Joanne would invite me each year. And this past year, after I finished my comments, I got a very, very nice reception from the teachers. And Joanne went back to the microphone and said, the two things that are most important to Michael are his family and baseball. And with that, the doors opened, and 3 of my grandchildren, unbeknownst to me, were there, and they walked down the corridor of the middle school, which all of you built, and they presented me with gifts that I'm sure that Joanne purchased. And that was just such a wonderful, wonderful day for me, and it gave me pause and thought about all 5 of our beautiful grandchildren and how important it is to us. I went on to the senior center, where I got my very own gamma ray fish. And the seniors made a presentation to me, and there was a skit and everything else, and songs, and Jeff and I were there, and that was a wonderful celebration. To the department heads meeting, which we hold the first Tuesday of every month, except in November. Jeff, when it's the 3rd Tuesday, I'll call you up and remind you. And at that department heads meeting, it was a wonderful way to end a collegial relationship when they also were kind and gave me a gift. To the Board of Selectmen's meeting last Monday night. Mike and the rest of them just outdid themselves tonight, but Monday night was truly a heartfelt experience for me, and I really will always remember the sentiments that they expressed right to this evening. But you know, I have no illusions, maybe a couple of delusions, but no illusions. I guess it was President Charles de Gaulle who said, the graveyards are filled with indispensable men. And that's really true. So I certainly appreciate and I'm gratified for all of these wonderful accolades. But I know there'll be other people who will be able to do that job, and other people who will be recognized in the future, just as you have so honored me this evening. It reminds me of a little story, 2 little stories quickly. I'm sorry it's so late. Do you want me to stop? Okay. 2 quick stories. I'm sure the staff wants me to stop, but I'm going to take advantage of this and keep you for 5 or 6 more minutes. And that is that I walked out to the town hall the other day. A older gentleman was looking around, seemed to be confused. I went over to him. I said, "Can I help you?" He said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Mike Caira, the town manager." He looked at me and he said, "Are you the new one or the old one?" And so I remember when I was in the town hall and there was this little kid who was with who I presume to be his father up by the snack machine. And it was about 6:30, 6:45. I was leaving. There was all kinds of activity out there. He caught my eye. He waved. I waved. I realized he was probably a kindergarten kid. He was saying something to his father. Father wasn't really paying attention. I went out to my car. All of a sudden, I see this little kid come running out in through the parking lot. You know how busy it is there with Little League and all the programs that are going on. And he said, Mr. Caira, Mr. Caira. And I said, hi. And I, kind of guessed as the right school. It was either Wildwood or Boutwell. And we started talking and chatting a little bit, and it was wonderful. And I said to him, are you with anybody? And then all of a sudden, this man came out and kind of slowly walked over to where we were. And I looked at him, and I said, you must be Joey's father. And he looked at me, and he said, and you are? So sometimes your influence goes a little further with the little kids than with the others. There's an old French proverb that says, gratitude is the heart's memory. And so as I conclude my tenure as town manager, I do so with a profound and heartfelt sense of gratitude for having been afforded such an extraordinary opportunity to serve this wonderful community. It has been my good fortune to have worked with hundreds of talented staff for more than 22 years. I extend my thanks to each of them for their work ethic, their willingness to do more with less, and their dedication to duty. I owe a debt of gratitude to the many town officials who willingly give of their time and offer their expertise, helping to meet the many challenges inherent in the operation of town government. I thank the businesses who comprise the economic engine for our community and the organizations who ensure its vitality and continually provide for the greater good. I especially thank the residents who understand, as I do, just how special Wilmington is and whose citizenry and community spirit ensure that it remains so. And finally, I thank my family. It was Mother Teresa who said, we ourselves feel that what we are doing is just a drop in the ocean, but the ocean would be less because of that missing drop. And all of you have been a part of our family by contributing to that ocean. I'm so fortunate, I've said it before, so lucky to have been born into a wonderful, giving, and caring family. I'm grateful for the extraordinary words that were offered by Kevin on behalf of my sister and brothers. It meant very, very much to me. More than that, the fact that you are here means so very much to me. I know that all of you are proud to be a member of this wonderful family, your spouses and your children, my nieces and nephews. And I thank you for being so, so special and important to me. I was blown away by those two little kids, Allison and Christian, coming up here tonight and representing all five of the lights of our life. I'm not sure whether it was Dick Longo who said it, or my dear friend of blessed memory, and Cindy is here, Dave McHugh, who said it. But they would always talk about their grandchildren before I ever had any. And I would just listen politely, as probably many of you do who don't have grandchildren. But they said to me, it was like falling in love again. And how right they are. It is such an extraordinary experience to be a grandparent. I kid my kids all the time. I say we should skip the kids and go right to the grandparents. I just want to say how wonderful it is to be able to share those children with my children, our children, Jane and I. It is just incredible. I've taken my role as grandfather very seriously. I always make it a point to visit just before bedtime. I've introduced them to sugar, and much to the consternation of their parents, I've introduced them to the Three Stooges. The kids were just absolutely incredible. They always argue about who's your favorite. I used to say, for the longest time, I used to get them aggravated. I used to say, well, until Brian came along, I didn't have a favorite. And I think they thought I was serious. I think Brian still thinks I'm serious. Heck, I like his girlfriend better than I like him. It's great having Amanda here, just as it is wonderful having Christian and Kristen. They make it difficult when you're calling the names. You don't know which one. They don't know which one you're calling, but it's just wonderful that Michael and Jennifer made such wise choices. To my oldest, Jennifer, she is the epitome of motherhood. I have so many people comment on the kids in Wilmington, that they see them in the schools or at the library or wherever. She is just does so much. I can remember, Mr. Kelly will tell you, that I always thought that she was the least athletic of all of our children, and because she wasn't able to swing a bat or bounce a ball. But it turned out that she earned 7 letters running, and she was cross-country and track captain, and she's running with her kids today, and just doing such a spectacular job that we're so very, very proud of her. To Angela, who is absolutely the epitome of grace and courage. And some of you know what I'm talking about. And I got to tell you, she is absolutely amazing. I cannot fathom what she goes through every day, and she comes up a winner every single moment and makes us so proud, makes her family so proud that she's going to beat this thing, and she's the greatest thing I know. To my son, Michael, I'm so proud that he carries the name, and he carries it so proudly, just like all of the kids. It was difficult going through school sometimes, being the son of the town manager. But it didn't let it bother him. It just forged ahead. If somebody said, oh, we only made the team because of this, I just kind of said, don't worry about that. And then he became the captain of a Division II college football team. And today he continues the work that my father, his grandfather so admired, the work of education and the work of coaching. Those were things that were so important to my dad, and he has done that exceedingly well, both on the high school and collegiate level as a coach, and now putting that aside a bit because he is a brand new principal of an elementary school in Ashland, and I'm so very proud of him and so very delighted that he and Kristen brings us Caroline and Anna, who we don't get to spend as much time with, but now that we have free time, I've got breakfast lined up with Sammy on Tuesday and lunch with Caroline a little later in the week. They don't know that yet, but that's what we're gonna do. And finally, Brian, the new Mr. Caira. you know, he's quite the fellow. A lot of people talk about him. I know that we had some folks coming up to us today saying how grateful they are that their kids are in his classroom, that he makes learning fun. You know, and he's somebody who, as they were describing the kinds of things that I do, he does it all the time. You'll find him on a soccer field watching his kids play, or at a recital, or at a concert on his free time. And he does it because he knows it's important to those kids. And I'm so very grateful for the companionship that we've had. You know, he was like an only child for many years because the older three kids were gone. He was fortunate to have three mothers, Jennifer, Angela, and Jane. One father and one brother who pushed him like crazy. They'd go outside and play basketball, and Mike would be 10 inches taller and 80 pounds heavier, and Brian would get swatted down, but he'd keep going back for more. And now Brian is better than Michael. Only in basketball. Only in basketball. Although Mike says he can post up on him, okay. But that leads me to just saying one thing about the kids that reflect on Jane. I got an email once, got many, many emails, but my most favorite email of all said this: "Forgive me for using your official email address to write you this note. It seemed easy and fast, and being a parent myself, I don't expect you would mind receiving it. My son is recently enrolled at the Wilmington Middle School. One of the big struggles at that age is the lunchroom. Today, my son attempted to sit with a neighborhood friend who apparently sits at a firmly entrenched area of the cafeteria. One student after another asked my son to move one seat this way or one seat that way. Eventually, my son gave up and went to sit somewhere else. Then, some nice kid came and sat with him. I don't know if this nice kid saw all the previous goings-on or just saw a new kid sitting by himself. Either way, it warms my heart to know that he is out there. My son didn't get his first name, but really enjoyed talking with this nice kid. I think his last name was Caira," he said, "something about his father being a town manager. I'm sure you already have many reasons to be proud of your son, but I just thought that that was an awesome thing for a kid that age to do, and that as a parent, you would enjoy hearing about it." This is the parent that instilled that kind of kindness in our children. I want to thank my beautiful mother, who epitomizes the phrase that when God came around to thinking how things could go, and he knew he was very, very busy, so he invented mothers. And this is the perfect mother, the perfect grandmother. I know everybody will say that, but and for everybody to believe that in your own mother is so important. But I can tell you that the love that she gives to her family can never, ever be repaid. She is an incredible woman. Who looks like my sister. She's so young looking, and is often confused as that. But she is so generous in everything she does. And she certainly had a wonderful, wonderful life partner, just as I do, just as I have a wonderful life partner. And people have mentioned Jane this evening. And I tell you that she is somebody that has given unconditional love. And no matter what I've ever wanted to do, She has been right there supporting me. She has borne the brunt of raising these kids. I certainly appreciate all that they have said tonight about me, but I especially appreciate what they have said about their mother, because she exemplifies motherhood the way my own mother and her own mother did. And she is somebody that I am just so delighted that out of the billions of people in this world, I had the good fortune to meet someone who has become the love of my life. Charles Dickens wrote, "Have a heart that never hardens, a temper that never tires, and a touch that never hurts." I think of my father every day. He, more than any other man I ever knew, fulfilled during his lifetime those words of Charles Dickens. Wilmington was a beneficiary of his influence and leadership during his time in office on the Board of Selectmen and School Committee. He chaired both boards with civility and fairness and with a profound sense of respect for the people of this community. As the English proverb so accurately concludes, one father is more than 100 schoolmasters. He had the personal touch, the integrity, the wisdom, the giving spirit, the love of family. 2 Sundays ago, I think it was, or 3 Sundays ago, Jane came into the office. I was working on a Sunday morning, and she came in about 10:30 with a whole bunch of newspaper, and she started taking the pictures off the wall. Started wrapping up the knickknacks, you know, the college frames from BC and Northeastern, the many gifts and the plaques, the photos, all of the things that I've amassed over the last 22 years. I remember walking out with one box, because one of the things on the wall was a painting that Pam McKenzie's husband had done for me of my favorite. Somebody mentioned him early, Louis Armstrong. If it wasn't so late, I'd do a little bit of Hello, Dolly. But she's giving me these boxes, and I'm carrying out one box, and I got a kick out of it because she labeled everything, and this one was labeled Family Pictures and Louis Armstrong. So, but she was clearing off all of the office walls, and she started to take down one last picture. And the picture was the first one that I had put up there. Now, I mean, she took everything. I had no coffee mug on Monday, nothing. She just, you know, we call her Scoop. Believe me, I love her. But if you get up in the morning to go to the bathroom, the bed is usually made by the time you get back. So, you know, she's gathering up all of these photos, and I had her keep this one last photo. And it was the first one we put up. It was a kind of a lengthwise rectangle collage of pictures, and it was of the 4 kids when I went there. So there was Brian, who was 2 years old, with a real puss on because he had suspenders on or something. Jane dressed him up funny. You know, there were the girls in their fancy clothes, Michael in his baseball uniform. And there was all kinds of these pictures in this photo about this big and about that wide that was just as you rounded the corner on the wall. And I said, just leave that one, will you? And it's still there. If you go into my office today, somebody said there's like an echo in there. Everything is gone. A few boxes, a little bit of shredding. Everything is gone. Get some notes for Jeff, except that picture. And that picture stayed there because every time my father came to visit, he would walk in my office, and it might have been the 50th time that he did it. And everything is all over the walls, and he would stop, and he'd take off his glasses, and he would look at those pictures. And so I'm not taking that picture down until I leave tomorrow, because my father and his influence has been with me every step of the way. There is no one who has been a greater role model than me. And so just as the kids alluded to it, I can tell you that the greatest compliment that I ever get, that I ever receive, is when somebody says to me, "You remind me of your father." He was a man, if you knew him, he was a man of unquestionable integrity and compassion, who could be in a room with the President of the United States or have a visit with the Pope. And I mean that in the capacities he served when he was the leader of the Italian Americans in the country and in North America, and when he would travel the world. Or he could be sitting down with somebody at a local lodge or somebody who had a problem, and he would be just as attentive as he would be with anyone. And so often people have come up to me over the years and they've said, "Do you know what your father did for me?" And if I can leave those same kinds of stories and reflections to my own children, then as parents, we have fulfilled the mission. Ladies and gentlemen, early in my career as town manager, and I promise I'm going to finish, I was asked to write a paragraph that would attempt to summarize the nature or attributes of our town that make it such a special place. And I was so honored the other day that our newest selectman, Judy O'Connell, referenced that. I wrote, "The essence of Wilmington is captured in the spirit of its people. Wilmington is a community that values its children and reveres its seniors. It is a community with a generous heart and an open mind. It is a community that welcomes change but respects tradition. The town of Wilmington encourages every resident and every visitor to enjoy the splendor of its resources. We are a community proud of its past and energized by the prospect of a bright and happy future. My family and I look forward to being a part of that future." I'm reminded of my two favorite songs. One is Memories, and the other is from that gifted tenor who we got to see last year, Andrea Bocelli, who says, "It's time to say goodbye. Thank you for your kindness and your expressions of goodwill. It has been a privilege." Good night.